Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of... Today, I'm here to bring you another Conlang Showcase, yet this time, it is not a Conlang Showcase of my own creation, nor that of Eternals, or Salem's, or anything. We have a special guest, a patron of mine, someone that you may very well know from the Agma Schwa Discord server, which is a really amazing place that you should check out. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Why, hello, yes, I am Epic Gamer Kakyoin. I am the guy that talks all the time. I am the guy with the blue name, the guy who should probably talk a little less often, maybe do something else this time, but has decided to spend perhaps too much time interacting with you all for your own benefit.
If anyone who is here watching is a new viewer to the channel, would you please mind subscribing? It very much helps the channel, helps my willingness to go on, and we will get closer to reaching that 3,000 subscriber goal. Become a matron if you would like to be like Kakyoin, having your Conlang eventually showcased, or any video suggestion or other suggestion that you'd like to input on the channel. That's how we have gotten to this point. Also, we're on Discord all the time, so we're buds. Anyway, let us begin.
Urhaa is a language I've been working on for about 2 years now, I think. I got all the, big ideas out early. The way I conlang is sort of, I do big strokes first. And then, ad infinitum, I just tweak little things. Like something small every day that I find or that I think is cool, just in that moment. And Urhaa is a really good example of that. It's sort of this big snowball of all these different ideas that I've somehow managed to make work with each other. Okay, so this is Urhaa, or Luxury Queer Space Communism. I won't hazard a guess at how to pronounce that because I will get tongue-tied very quickly. This language is very agglutinating, has some very weird consonant clusters, and, fun. And yes, by me, not by the other guy. So what exactly is Urhaa? Well, it's a xeno-language for humanoid speakers. I know xeno-languages usually mean non-humanoid speakers, but bite me. It has an English-like phonology, in principle, not exactly in practice. Substantial agglutination, as you got a glimpse of earlier. A truly inhumane amount of pronouns. When people say pronouns are violence, they mean these pronouns. It has vowel harmony and clausoids, which, stay tuned, it's going to take a bit of explanation. Okay, phonology and orthography. So, the phonology, like I said, is pretty similar to English. The voiceless stops aren't fortis, they aren't aspirated at all. And there is nya. That's not exactly a phoneme in English, but I figured it'd be pretty easy for an English speaker to pronounce, because it was for me, as with ra. Besides ha, which again is probably pretty easy, there are these little bits of asymmetry that I really like here. Notice how we're missing ga. There's just nothing here. Then we have the, but no th, which I personally really enjoy. I think it's one of my favorite decisions that I made with the phonoaesthetic of this language. And here's romanization. Again, pretty typical. Ch is X, the is DH. I almost went with TH for a while there, but I decided I'd be a little bit more accurate with it. And ra is 1 R, ra is 2 R's. And this is a J. The font that I used, it looks really good on every letter but J. So you're gonna have to bear with that. And here we have the vowels. There is a length contrast on everything but O and And that is because of vowel harmony, actually. And we do have these two syllabic consonants, la and ra. But they're not syllabic very often. I think out of I think we're getting close to 1,000 words. But out of all of those, I think maybe 5 or 10 have la or ra syllabically. And here's the orthography. I went for doubling the vowels here because I use circumflexes to denote, different vowels. A is A circumflex, while A is regular A. Now, the phonotaxics are where things get funny. So the language is C2 v C2, but consonants can be any consonant. They may theoretically be any consonant, but they generally follow these two rules. If it's just plosives or fricatives, they have to be like in voicing. There's no mixed voice nonsense here. If there are nasals or approximants in there, they can be of any voicing. And clusters generally follow sonority hierarchy. Generally. Sometimes. And the word order is VSO. You can see this big long thing here explaining it. And then stress. So primary stress, it will try to find the first syllable with a long vowel first to be stressed. Stress likes long vowels in Urhaa. If it can't find a long vowel, then it will find the first non-affix syllable with a harmonizing vowel. So a vowel that is affected by a vowel harmony, which we'll see here in a bit. And if it can't find a syllable like that, the last resort is a non-affix syllable with a neutral vowel, those being o or And words made up of two or more morphemes, not affixes or anything generally, like two nouns, essentially. Those words may have secondary stress following these rules for each morpheme, but it generally only occurs once, and only if the stressable syllable is one or more syllables away from another stressed syllable. And we have some allophony here. Not a lot. There's only one rule that gets followed all the time. This da-da to th between vowels. There's also, ra to ra between vowels, but there are exceptions, like hurasmoho and related pronouns, and we have ks to x, but this word xen means moment, and this does not follow that rule. And here is our vowel harmony chart. So vowels are actually organized entirely based on backness. It would be backness and roundness if ah was round, but it is unfortunately not. So front vowels we have a, e, and back we have a, o, u. And of course for neutral we have o and like I said earlier. And neutral vowels are transparent, but they do switch when the harmony changes for grammatical reasons. And front unrounded vowels become long at the ends of words, so the front vowels. So here's the orthography. The alphabet is written left to right, top to bottom, just like English. And this is the actual alphabetical order, by the way. The characters on the left are standardized by the Ministry of Culture, so they are these more angular ones here. And the ones on the right are handwritten. And they're not actually standardized at all. These are just sort of the shapes that people have, agreed to use. And we have some alternate characters here, like this sort of infinity symbol, or you can not make an infinity symbol and not be cool. A few more characters. And there's this trend here for sounds that are culturally perceived as long. So, ra and all the long vowels, they are each, the character for that phoneme, but with a strike through it. Okay, pronouns. Be afraid. Be very afraid. I believe I counted once, and there are about 65 pronouns in this language, like regular pronouns that get used all the time.
Oh no.
And the reason for that, which I go into depth on my channel, Squirbo's Conlangerie, this species, the Urhaa, they have 7 biological sexes, and gender is very important in society. So you'll see even the second person pronouns here, they are explicitly gendered. And as we go on to third person, we lose the dual pockle distinction. It is just pockle now. And you can see these group pronouns at the bottom there. They really don't distinguish number at all. They are for, like I said, groups of sexes 1 and 2, or sexes 3, 4, and 5. 6 and 7, you can't really group them, so they don't get their own group pronouns. It's not, nice to group them, basically. And the last pronouns, here we are. I believe I explained 4th or 5th person on the next slide. If I don't, I will kick myself. Okay, some background. Sex and gender are very, very important to Urhaa society. And so each biological sex has its own set of pronouns, and few more pronouns for groups they get societally sort of clumped into. There's also a set of neuter pronouns for other objects, particularly animals with less biological sexes. They hate animals. But hypothetically, if you have an animal with 5 sexes, fuck it, it's inanimate. Oh wait, can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, fuck it. So the 4th person pronouns are an obviate. And the 2 5th-person pronouns are further obvious, though they're very rarely used, really only in formal situations. Urhaa is pro-drop, thank God. Usually the drop pronoun is assumed to be the speaker, but can also be the most salient topic or the subject of a clause. Grammar. My favorite part. So this is the vocabulary paradigm. Basically, with very, very few exceptions, each word has a base form as a noun, like fana for fabric, or union, and ulas for friendship. So to make a verb out of that, we have a verbalizing suffix sod that we add to them. So fana sod is to sew, and ula sod is to make friends. And then for the adjective form, again, notice the funky J here. You try to change the voicing of the first phoneme, so F and U, and you add a Z to the noun form. But if you can't change voicing, then you change the vowel harmony. Like I was saying, there are grammatical purposes for this earlier. So you have vanas, meaning of fabric, sewn, soft, or united. Words in Urhaa they usually have they occupy a lot of lexical space. Most of them will have quite a few meanings that they've accrued through the years, so sometimes specificity is kind of hard. And then we have ivas, which has changed harmony and means friendly. And we have 7 cases here, I believe, if I can count. Nominative, accusative, basic stuff, dative, genitive, locative, instrumental, and vocative. Vocative doesn't get used really often, but in contemporary usage, in contemporary informal usage, it's really more like a topic marker. If you were talking about friendship, you would say ho'ulas, instead of, some other more complicated construction. It has enough complicated constructions already. And here we have some various useful affixes, sort of the ones, I dug out of the garage. We have an agentive, or, the verbalizer, which we just covered, the honorific, which is the same as the vocative, but is a suffix instead of a prefix. We have the intensifier, nu or ni, which enhances meaning. We have the diminutive, al or al, which indicates lesser degree, smallness, or intimacy. Like it's used very often in pet names and nicknames and things like that. We have the pejorative, chal or chal, which has a negative meaning. And we have a place suffix, wad or wad, which basically means, place or land. Here we have our moods and evidential particles. Moods, indicative, subjunctive, which is used for quite a bit of stuff. It's sort of the catch-all for, irrealis, opinions, requests, emotions, and possibilities. Optative, hopes, desires, and prayers, though it does kind of get used for requests pretty often as well. Then we have the imperative, which is just for orders. Then we have our evidential particles. They're not necessary in a sentence, but they are kind of nice to use. So we have ha, heard only, but it can also mean you got the information secondhand, this is gossip, or you don't have very much context. And then we have hu, which means saw only, but it means evidence that is unreliable for some reason or another. You're not certain, or maybe you misunderstood it and are just trying to get that out there. Then we have la, which means heard and saw, or just generally observed, which is only used for first-hand evidence or given truths. They are very careful about this particle. Then we have he, which is the same as the imperative. There are a lot of these sort of similarities. It's part of the fun. So we have this big-ass table here, tense and aspect. Primarily perfective, imperfective, habitual, and perfect. And then each, this is rather uncommon linguistically, but I felt like it would, be applicable here since it's pretty agglutinative. Each one can take a suffix for past or future. Well, a suffix for past and then a verbal construction for future, using ampa, which means to go. But it doesn't really get used as to go very often anymore. It mainly just gets used as a particle. Other verbs have kind of supplanted it, but not really. So saying will go, ampa, it is kind of awkward, so they try to avoid that. And here we have our wonderful endings. So, present perfective isn't like a simple tense, it's a gnomic, which I'm sure you know means just like a general statement about life. But it is a simple present sometimes, wackiness. Okay, here we are, politeness. Or, why the 79 pronouns you just learned are useless. That's just the Urhaa beat, baby. So we have a few levels of politeness here. The sort of pronouns that you'll use with someone. You'll use second singular if they're your friends, they're your siblings or coworkers. You use second pakal if you're not quite familiar with them. If they're just acquaintances or parents or grandparents, people you respect, all of that. Then we have second plural, which is respectful, used for moderately higher ranked superiors or very respected individuals at your own sort of social status. Then we have third plural, which is formal, used for much higher rank superiors or civil servants, ship command, or law enforcement, generally. And then you eschew the pronouns entirely for the final level. You just use titles. And this is the honorific level of respect. This is used for government officials, cultural icons, and the more titles you use, the more clunky you make your language, the more respect you convey. So these are some examples of politeness. The base phrase here is, "You are beautiful," spoken to a commander of the fourth sex. Here, we're using the second singular pronoun, which is equivalent to, "Hey baby, nice ass." And then then the next level of politeness is like whistling, sort of catcalling non-verbally. That's sort of the cultural equivalent. And then we move on to plural, "You look nice." You know, not a not nice compliment, but not really stellar or anything. Just sort of boilerplate. Third plural, "You are beautiful." Finally, we're at that phrase we wanted. And then as we move on to the title, "You're extravagant, radiant, positively glowing." It can really seem like you're piling it on if you use this too much. But if the individual is vain enough, you can time for impoliteness. Or heck it, use the pronouns anyway. You can always use the inappropriate pronoun, but most impoliteness comes from phonological changes that purposefully make speech ugly. So you change huh to huh, the to sa or za, depending on how freaky you're feeling. You shorten long vowels, you add pejoratives, and you front harmonize every word. So, he nasla sras. I said I was bad at this. That means, "Are you okay?" versus, "He nasras. What's your problem? What's your problem, dude?" So, clausoids, those things I mentioned earlier, the elephant in the room. These are potentially the most involved part of Urhaa grammar. An adjective suffixed to a verb can function as a regular adjective noun phrase, being declined like a noun, or it can act as though there were a copula ahead of it, being conjugated like a verb and functioning as a clause, hence the term clausoid. And clausoids are a lot more common than copula use, so these examples back here, they are a bit clunky for normal speech. You see I use the clausoid forms here as well, you know, where they'd fit. So, example, this clausoid means either painful smoke or the smoke is painful, depending on context. And then you can decline it like a noun. You can add our intensifier here, means lots of painful smoke. Or conjugate like a verb. You can add the subjunctive here, and one of our past tense markers, and say the smoke would have been painful. Relative clauses. These are actually pretty simple. Relative clauses are treated as the objects of their main clauses. So, you can see in this sentence here, I tried to bold the O. Should have made a different color or something. And that is, I believed that the smoke would have been painful. This is the clausoid from earlier, being treated as a object of this clause, so it's being turned into a subclause. And if the main clause would have an object without the subclause, that object is demoted to dative. So you can see we're adding another subject here. And they have to take the dative because, you know, we have this big fat clausoid sitting in the object slot. So you can't exactly, you know, butt in front of it. It's a lot more grammatically important than other parts of the main clause. The following is a retelling of the Imperium's official origin story. Onreanso di ausans uosardo, incosi sacan rali, di Urhaa omdo homrazorians. Faodarso di ramuscan ralona, ranfa reparso di da uporona e hauna muasto, eliecan elimroi audan vuchanzo muasto aoronao. E oado, xenai sanzidas, paleso di ausans uosardo uma hirasma heha. Ebuya, odaral, dirun fa. Humaho diud urhaho huzna mire parsod ehaona keocherzazi muasto. Faod zodu ehana onto mrisi hulosuosnunu. E canso di urhaho huzaradazna unras femicte filavana da e sanstril. E eli hacha undukna huzbo ausans kachralo hurazmo ho aronatru. Dir uo kizonalal kizon sod hurazmo ha. Escadrin sod susamo uchkan rarona. Iwo sardo. Norwa kosoda osparo. Ra. Hotlanso. He os pudos dentrusod canral. Os muyampa codisod os pardo wa osmak. And that is all. Thank you for watching, and thank you for having me on. This has been wonderful.
That's amazing. I mean, obviously, I've been looking at Urhaa as it's developed over time for like 2 years now, pretty much at this point, right?
Remember the rhotic vowels?
Yeah. That's what I was waiting to see at first. I was like, oh yeah, Urhaa's the one that's got like every vowel eroticized. I'm like, oh hell yeah, but it turned out to be more erotic than rhotic, if you know what I mean.
Well, thank you.
And again, Kakyoin has a channel. I don't know how many videos are going to be out by the time this showcase is released. I don't know what your progress has been on those, but videos will be coming out soon.
So on my channel, at some point, there will be a companion video to this one, sort of explaining more about the Urhaa themselves, not really touching on the language very much, sort of history and biology, and why things do be like they do be, essentially. Yeah, there is some lore. There is some fucked lore behind everything.
There is. And yes, this all happened because Kakyoin's obviously been on the Discord server for a long time, and because of the Patreon, right? Kakyoin's been a patron for a very, very long time. And,
yes, I have. And
exactly.
As an added benefit to being a patron of Nga, you get some insider access to pages of a comic, let's say.
Yes, wink, wink. All right, well, that's all for me. Any special goodbye messages you want to send to the people?
Well, if you've been a patron as long as I have, if you've been a patron for, a few months, maybe not as long as I have, you can also get a showcase like this. Is that right?
That is indeed correct. Just message me on Patreon or on Discord, if you've been a $3 patron for 3 months or longer, and we'll work on putting together some stuff. This is the first one, and I've already got a couple others in the works from some other patrons, so it's happening.
Well, all right. I believe that is all I have to say. Good night, everybody. Stay pink, soft, and oily.
Delicious. See you, everybody. Nga out.